I've got some news. We're in a civility crisis, according to Weber Shandwick, the firm who runs a Civility in America poll each year. Consistently, their survey shows that about 75% of us think we live in a cruel world full of incivility and aggression. Just look at the business landscape. Harassment and discrimination complaints to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission go up year after year. A certain airline asked the police to forcibly remove a paid customer. You might be thinking this stuff will never happen at your company, but I guarantee all of the organizations out there with negative behavior never saw the lawsuit or media attention coming. The fact is, organizational culture dictates our behavior. So you have to change your culture, and this course will help you do that. My name is Catherine Matthijs-Sundell, and I have been studying negative workplace cultures and how to reverse them since 2004. I've written 2 books about solving workplace bullying, and I've worked with clients ranging from Fortune 500s down to small businesses. This course will define bad behaviors and discuss how they work as a social phenomenon. We'll discuss the cost of negative cultures and the ROI of positive ones. From there, I'll take you through the process of creating a positive workplace, including conducting a survey, creating a culture committee to help, developing a vision and core values, and a strategic plan for culture change. Follow my steps, and I can almost guarantee a better work environment. Before we get too far down the path of solving the problem of bad behaviors at work, I thought it was important to get on the same page with definitions, and more importantly, to understand that negativity is a social phenomenon, and it's an organizational culture problem. Behaviors stem from the individual, but it's up to the organization to step in and resolve bad behaviors. If they don't, the organization has to take responsibility for the behavior. I like to think of bad behaviors on a spectrum, with incivility at the far left. Incivility is about rudeness, impoliteness, or microaggressions. It's low-intensity behavior that displays a lack of regard for the other person and that violates mutual respect. It's not saying hello in the hallways, for example. Next on the spectrum is workplace bullying, which is defined as systematic, aggressive communication, manipulation of work, and acts aimed at humiliating others. Bullying creates a psychological power imbalance and causes those at the receiving end to experience psychological problems, such as depression, anxiety, fear, and stress. In turn, physical problems arise, such as headaches, sleepless nights, and even heart disease. Several research studies find that anywhere between 35 and 75% of the workforce feels bullied, depending on the industry. One person I coached for his bullying behavior used to stand up in staff meetings, lean over the table, and tell whomever just said something he disagreed with, "That's a stupid idea, and let me tell you why." Then he'd launch into a 30-minute lecture about it. Harassment and discrimination are a subset of bullying. Harassment is unwelcome conduct aimed at a person due to their personal characteristics, such as race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or others, and that a reasonable person would consider intimidating, hostile, or abusive. Harassment is often overt, repeated behavior, such as racial slurs or sending emails with sexual content. Discrimination is treating someone unfavorably because of their personal characteristics, such as denying a job offer or promotion, or paying people with certain characteristics less than others doing the same job. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, reports they receive 90,000 discrimination complaints a year, a third of which also include harassment. They also suspect that 75% of people never report harassment or discrimination to HR or managers. In other words, the EEOC is aware that there is more harassment and discrimination than we could ever imagine, and that's really sad. Hazing and mobbing are also a subset of bullying, defined as a group of people bullying one person. The difference here is that hazing is usually about indoctrination, and once a new hire is fully vetted, the behavior's let up. Mobbing, on the other hand, doesn't have an expiration date. You might think of the word mob like a riot, But in this context, we are really just talking about group bullying. There are many stories of women joining the fire department, for example, and as the only woman, she is mobbed by her peers. They might spray paint her locker or post inappropriate things in the woman's bathroom. This is also a good example of how all these negative behaviors cross over, because this is also sexual harassment. At the far end of the spectrum is workplace violence, something that is probably much more common than you think. Only a small percentage of violence includes shootings or assaults. Roughly 2 million American workers are affected by workplace violence each year. It's verbal abuse, physical assault, and homicide. Really, all that has to happen in order for there to be violence is for someone to experience fear. For example, in a case where I appeared as an expert witness for the plaintiff, the manager would yell at and cower over people. Naturally, people would back away. And sometimes he would fishhook them with his finger in their nostril to keep them from going anywhere. Most people would say the violence happened when there was touching, when the finger entered the nostril. But actually, the workplace violence happened as soon as the person at the receiving end of the yelling became afraid. When you think about it that way, you can see how common workplace violence is. So we've discussed the full spectrum of negative behaviors at work. I always say, do you really want your managers picking through this list, trying to understand what's what? A better option is to just create a positive work environment where these behaviors can't thrive. It might be easy to blame bad behaviors on an individual. They are acting up, and so it's their fault. And yes, the individual is responsible for their own behavior, but understand that they are acting in the context of your organization. The person engaging in bad behaviors is lacking social and emotional intelligence, and they often have a hard time dealing with stress. And they are often top performers and have a strong desire to be seen as a top performer and lash out whenever that's threatened. They also do it because they believe they have permission and that it might even be normal given the organization's culture. And research has definitely found that organizational factors such as bureaucracy, hierarchy, and high competition can cause negative behaviors. Other factors might include organizational change, longtime employees who are resistant to change, unclear job roles and tasks, or individuals who don't have strong pragmatic or social skills. In all of these circumstances and more, negativity can fester. And if the environment isn't a focus of leaders, then it easily gets out of hand and stretches from incivility into bullying and even violence. While the negative person and their targets are players in the problem, so are the people who witness it and who don't say anything to put a stop to it. Just like the people engaging in the behavior, these witnesses, or reinforcers as I like to call them, believe the behavior is normal, or they believe, due to the organization's culture, that they will be retaliated against if they say something. Leaders hold the key to creating a positive work environment. Just as we have defined negative behaviors here, it is important for them to define positive behaviors and ensure the workplace is set up to celebrate them. Create a culture where negativity is the abnormal, and people who engage in it will stick out like a sore thumb. Peer pressure to act with positivity will take over, and that's how organizational culture works. Employee empowerment, employee engagement, culture, all words you've heard before. Empowered and engaged employees who work in a thriving, positive culture are fully absorbed in their work and consistently take action to further your business. And you know all this, yet you may not have any sort of program focused on building a positive environment. Why? Because it's hard to get started, and engagement seems elusive. But like any other big goal, little by little, if you focus on it, you can make an impact. In all my years of research, I found that positive, thriving organizations have 7 places they excel. Let's talk about what that might look like in your organization. First, people have to feel valued by their peers and leaders. They have to feel like their ideas are heard, that they are appreciated, and that they are trusted to get their work done. Employees have to feel connected to the mission. They have to know they can make a difference in clients' lives each day and why their daily work tasks are important to achieving the mission. One company I did training for did vector and mosquito control. When I asked a person during our break to tell me more, she said, "We kill mosquitoes. That's all we do." A guy piped up and said, "That's not all we do. We are saving the community from West Nile virus." He's connected to the mission. Employees have to feel like they are part of a team. They have to trust their team members, feel free to give and take feedback and share ideas, and believe the group does well at communicating and making good decisions. Your people have to enjoy the organization's culture. They have to like their environment, feel comfortable with the pace of work, and just have a good feeling every morning as they walk into their workplace. People also have to trust in leadership. They have to believe leaders have their best interests at heart and care about their well-being. People also have to feel like they are growing in your organization, both personally and professionally. That means they have to feel challenged and that the organization cares about their growth as much as it cares about the growth of the bottom line. Finally, people have to be rewarded. That could mean they are given more challenging work, the opportunity to train others, or to participate in a project that is personally rewarding. It could also mean literal rewards like bonuses, pay increases, or promotions. Even a simple thank you every now and again is rewarding. Each second of every day, we all have a choice in how much effort we might give a task. We give effort at our discretion. If your employees, at their discretion, choose to give tasks their all more often than not, then of course it results in more productivity and better customer service. And that translates into higher financial performance. So let's look at a case study. Fabric Cat is a large family-owned business with 600 employees. It sells, rents, and repairs Caterpillar construction equipment. When the newest generation president came on board, he decided to do an engagement survey and realized that only 16% of employees were engaged. So each department created plans to fix problems and measure their success. They offered management training on building engagement and sales training in meeting and exceeding customer needs. They also invested in customer engagement to increase the depth of their relationship with customers. Within a few years, engagement drove up to 45%. They invested about $500,000 in engagement, but profit increased by 100% and revenue by 15%, a 600% return on investment. In fact, there are a lot of studies out there. I won't bore you with all of them, but here's some food for thought. Engaged employees are 87% less likely to leave the organization. Organizations with engaged employees outperform those with low employee engagement by 202%. Happy employees are 12% more productive than unhappy ones. And disengaged employees commit 60% more errors and have a 37% higher absenteeism rate than those who are engaged. Now, I can't give a formula to measure the success and return on investment for your own engagement initiatives. How you measure success will be determined by what programs you put in place. Figuring out how and what to measure will be part of your implementation process. Armed with the information that a focus on engagement equals better work, you're ready to jump in and create a better work environment for your workforce. Christine Porath, a leading expert on incivility, found in her research that most people intentionally reduce their commitment to an organization as a result of incivility. People also admit to avoiding uncivil people, which is a waste of time and lost productivity. The Canadian Safety Council found that people who feel bullied spend about half their day talking about it with coworkers or looking for another job. This is called presenteeism, being at work physically, but not mentally. World-renowned academic researchers Charlotte Rayner and Laura Lee Keishley estimated that in an organization of 1,000 people, one bully would cost about $1 million in turnover, presenteeism, wasted time, lost clients, reduced quality of work, and all the other things that happen in a negative work environment. While this is all nice information to know, it's not really useful for you specifically. So let's take a look at what negativity costs in your organization. To make it a little easier, I've broken the costs up into 4 categories. I've also provided a cost worksheet in the exercise files with an example to help you out. First up, psychological costs. People simply can't do top quality work when they are in a negative environment. They experience stress, loss of energy, depression, anxiety, and more, and so their work suffers. To determine the costs in this category, you have to look at things like reduced work product, lost customers, health insurance costs, and workers' compensation claims for stress. In other words, take some time to brainstorm where damage could be done if employees were feeling stressed, and look into those areas. I bet you'll find some examples of stress costing money. Next, let's take a look at time lost. How much time have you yourself spent counseling people or dealing with complaints about behavior? Now determine your hourly rate and multiply that. If your hourly rate is $50 an hour and you've spent 240 hours over the last year, that's $12,000. Now do the same calculation for your managers and others who have also been involved with the negative environment. I bet you can easily reach $100,000. You could also take the Canadian Safety Council's tip and figure that if one department has a workplace bully, for example, that all 5 of his employees probably only work half-time. In salary alone, that's expensive. There are, of course, tangible costs, too. Take, for instance, absenteeism, unemployment insurance, investigations for grievances, and training programs you've provided to solve your negative environment. In addition, there is cost of turnover. Turnover is calculated by looking at the cost of time spent recruiting and training the person who left and the person who replaced them. Include time it took to process the departure and new hire, added overtime to make up for work, and lost productivity for the supervisor and staff. Also consider that a new hire takes about 6 months to be fully functioning, so day by day you lose money as you're not getting what you're paying for in salary until the new hire is fully functional. The last category is legal costs. If somebody sues for harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, or wrongful termination, it's going to cost you in legal fees for counsel and settlement fees. UCLA's Rand Center for Law and Public Policy showed plaintiffs most often earn 6 figures, paid for by the employer. Costs of trial are around $150,000, and even if the judge dismisses the charges before trial, the average legal costs are $75,000. Bottom line, people are assets to be invested in, and when they break down, so does efficiency, loyalty, quality, and customer service. When people are excited about their jobs and enjoy the people they work with, they have a self-sustaining system that reinforces performance and gives you the competitive advantage. If you need proof that negative work environments are expensive, just pull out the cost worksheet in the exercise file and see for yourself. As they say, a good place to start is the beginning. If you plan to build a thriving workplace, you can't know where to begin until you know what's working and what's not, and a survey will tell you that. One easy place to start is with the assessment I've included in the exercise files. It asks you to think through whether your organization is already focused on a positive culture by answering some yes or no questions. From there, you may consider putting together a focus group or 2 and asking people to share what the strengths and weaknesses of the organization are, what they see as great unresolved problems, their sense of employee morale, and what they really like about working there. I recommend randomly selecting 6 to 10 employees and meeting somewhere private. Make sure whomever leads the focus group is someone who has the trust of the workforce. Now you're ready for your survey, but before you jump into survey mode, it's good to take a step back and ensure you are ready to act on the results. I've provided a pre-survey worksheet to help you plan, located in the exercise files. You'll notice the first questions are asking you to determine what inspired the survey and what you hope to learn. Use the information you gained in the focus group and your other inspirations to answer those questions. For example, if you think morale and engagement is already pretty high and you're just hoping to take it higher, your survey will be different than if you know your workforce is burnt out and turnover is high and you're trying to figure out how to stabilize. The worksheet also asks you to plan out your communication. A few weeks before the survey goes out, the leader should send out communication that the survey is coming and participating is paramount. Describe why it's important, what will be done with the results, and commitment to improvement. Of course, you'll send an email out with the link to your online survey, and while it's open, a few emails should go out encouraging participation. The worksheet also asks you to ensure you are ready to act on the results. It's not enough to have budget for the survey. You've got to have budget and time to act on the results. Be sure you're ready to do so, or you'll burn trust as people think the results were ignored. You'll find the worksheet asks you to plan out some other things too, like who will help you champion the survey to ensure maximum participation, who will be responsible for analyzing the survey data, and the outcomes. So let's talk about creating survey questions. Again, you should create questions based on what you think you need to know. Your questions will vary depending if you're focused on work-life balance, engagement, communication, or job satisfaction. I personally like to do a little mix of all of them. I have a library of questions to pull from, but you can easily locate survey templates online that work for you. There are a few things to be mindful of as you write and tweak questions. Surveys should be no more than 55 questions. This will require about 10 minutes of the survey taker's time. Too many questions and people will lose interest. Too little amount of questions and you might not get what you need. Use a 4-point Likert scale. These are rating systems. For example, you may have been asked to rate how likely you are to recommend your car dealership to others, and you had some choices ranging from extremely likely to not at all likely. Many times I see 7 options in the Likert scale, and personally, I think that waters down the data. Really, what's the difference between not at all likely and not likely? So, in asking people to rate whether they feel they have a say in decisions that affect them, the scale might be not at all, sometimes, usually, or all the time. Finally, beware of double-barreled questions. If you ask people to rate the statement, "I believe in our mission statement and core values," you've used a double-barreled question. It should be broken up into 2 questions because they might have different answers. "I believe in our mission statement" and "I believe in our core values" are much more valid. Also, don't forget to ask some open-ended questions. I find this data is even more useful than the quantitative data because it's rich with examples and ideas. Just keep in mind as you compile your data that open-ended answers should be broken up into themes that you can see. Also be sure comments are broken up enough that no one would know who said what. Remove things like "my manager Frank" or "at the monthly IT meeting," as those comments could harm confidentiality. And now you're ready for your next step, to act on all these new opportunities for improvement. So let's go. A leader's job is to focus on culture. Create the right culture, and all the rest will fall into place. A good culture creates a place for good employees to do good work. But while leaders should lead culture, they surely shouldn't do it alone. You need some culture champions on your side, and that's where a culture committee comes in. So let's talk about the who, what, when, where, and why of culture committees. Who should be on it? I recommend no more than 8 people. You should be from all levels of the organization, and they should be people who are natural leaders. How you come to appoint members of the committee depends on the situation. You may want to send out an email that you're looking for volunteers, but if you're worried about Debbie Downer raising her hand, you may want to just hand-pick members instead. You might also consider asking for nominations and then selecting those who have the most votes. What does the committee do? 3 things. They champion change, they spread positive gossip about the things in the committee is working on, and they develop and execute your strategic plan. So they aren't just committee members executing action items. They are cheerleaders for your organization. When should they meet? Their first meeting should be right after your survey is closed. You'll want them to review the data immediately so they can determine what low-hanging fruit they can offer as a result of that data. It's important to display quickly that the results were reviewed and being acted upon. And pretty quickly after delivering that low-hanging fruit, you'll need to share with the organization what other actions are coming down the pipeline. I also recommend that at the first meeting, you all come up with some rules of engagement. For example, determine who is going to keep minutes of your meetings and track action items. In fact, I provided a template committee agenda in the exercise files. Also consider things like the rules for returning emails and where documents are going to be stored. Who's going to lead the meetings? Should you trade off or vote on a leader? From there, the members should meet as often as they need to finalize your strategic plan and ensure it's executed. Where should the committee meet? Consider holding the first meeting somewhere fun just to set the tone. If you're going to create an exciting culture, an exciting meeting place might be nice. From there, you can certainly meet on site, but you've got to keep the energy up. So, why does the committee exist? They are cheerleaders for your culture. They can also spend time trying to understand what the workforce is thinking, and they can bring that back to the committee. So the committee can be agile and change as they need based on that feedback. The committee can also help you get buy-in. I hear all the time of leaders going off on a retreat and creating a strategic plan and then asking other people to execute it. If members of the workforce create the strategic plan for your culture, the workforce will have more buy-in. So let's talk about a few keys to the committee's success. As the leader, you have to give the committee your full attention and commit to providing the resources needed to make culture change. You also have to be open to the feedback you receive. You can't get defensive. Finally, you absolutely have to be positive. Your job as a leader is to paint your vision and encourage everyone to follow you to reach that vision. If you're not positive, then no one else will be either. As for the committee, they need to feel that it's a safe place to talk openly and freely without judgment or fear of consequence. Of course, you might be one of the committee members, but that doesn't necessarily mean you will lead it. In the end, this committee is going to be the key to the success of your culture, so have fun with it. Let's talk vision statements. Every leadership article out there says you should have a vision, but is it really useful? The answer is an unequivocal yes, if you use it regularly. I see this all the time. Organizations with vision, mission, and value statements on the website, and that's it. Of course they aren't useful if that's the only place you use them. You need a strong and simple vision statement to lead your organization and lead your culture change. And ideally, you should use the same vision statement for both. So, if your business has a vision statement already, take a look at it. Can you use it to guide your culture change? If you can, great! You can stop this video now and go start making it a big part of everything you're doing. If it won't work as an external vision statement and as a statement that drives your culture, then you'll need to create a whole new vision statement that can do both. For example, if your nonprofit's vision statement involves ending hunger in your community, you'll need to create a new vision statement because ending hunger in your community can't be tied to your internal culture. So let's talk about how to create a vision statement. Your vision statement is a clear and inspirational hope for the future. It serves as the pin in the map. It's what you're driving toward. So I worked with an organization that was riddled with bullying. The organization was created to help people with disabilities become thriving members of the community. And they realized that their aggressive bullying culture was keeping them from doing that job well. Obviously, no one was paying attention to the vision and core values if there was bullying, so the leader decided to start over. After some work with a committee, we came up with a one-word vision statement: thrive. The leader began communicating regularly that all employees must focus not only on helping clients thrive, but on helping themselves and peers thrive. Bullying obviously hinders thriving, and so it immediately became unacceptable, and now we could embark on culture change. Of course, we did a lot of work after that, but thrive guided all of it. Check out the exercise file in this course for a worksheet to help you create your vision statement. Essentially, you will gather all of your employees together and ask them to get into groups of 3 or 4 to brainstorm answers to the questions listed there, such as, what problem are we solving? And what are we doing to solve it? Then, as a large group, discuss similarities and gather those similar answers together in a yes section on a whiteboard. Also look at anything else that stands out. Should it be included in the yeses too? Then break back up into small groups, and each group should brainstorm a vision statement with those yeses in mind. From there, you can vote on the best, combine some of them into one, or ask your culture committee to take it from there to fine-tune. Now you have a vision statement everyone can get behind because they helped create it. I know that sometimes it's not possible to create a whole new vision. You may have a board of directors to report to who won't let you change what they created 10 years ago. I get it. If that's the case, you still need a vision to guide your culture change, which I will call a culture vision. I hate to say it because it's not my preferred choice, but this is an option. You'll run a similar exercise as the one I just mentioned, but with different questions. In this scenario, the group would discuss the culture, and the questions to use are also in the exercise file. One example of a culture vision is an organization that was focused on building a culture of inclusion. I don't know what their external vision statement was, but their internal culture vision was, no one eats lunch alone. They put those words on posters and hung them everywhere. And instead of using stock photos with diverse people smiling, you know the ones I mean, we've all seen them everywhere, so they don't resonate with us anymore. They used pictures of empty workplace cafeterias. These pictures of empty cafeterias were a more profound reminder of inclusion and how lonely it might be if you weren't included. To recap, if your current vision statement cannot be used to drive culture change because of the way it's worded, then create a new one. Remember, keep your vision statement short, profound, and inspirational. People have to remember it and feel emotionally attached to it. And don't forget to have fun with the vision exercise.